Hey everyone, welcome back to another beginner's guide to Delta Force. As promised in the previous video, the next one we're covering is Gunbuilding 101. I'm going to go into a few of the specifics when it comes to gun building, but we're not going to get specifically into you should build this particular gun this particular way. And the reason why is because everybody's playstyle is a little bit different. I prefer taking fights at range, so me being able to ADS, aim down sight quickly, isn't as important as, say, somebody like Budsy, who I will link his stuff below, who likes to fight in close quarters combat. Or Sammy, again, I'll link him below as well, who enjoys, well, not necessarily enjoys, but he does a lot of solo play, and so he needs guns that are better for him to be able to solo with. What I am going to cover in this is how exactly all of this information translates in particular with this game. And I'm saying that because I come from a Call of Duty background, so for me, accuracy would be how much bullet spread I have on a gun when I'm hip firing or when I am aim down sight. In this game, that's not the case. So we're going to quickly cover what each of these stats means in regards to Delta Force. And then I will go a little bit more in depth, but unfortunately, this is one where you either have to find somebody else's build and make adjustments for yourself, or learn what works for you. And I'm saying this because, in particular, so this SR25 is not my build. I believe this is one that I picked up off of ground loot, and I will show you the difference between this one and mine in just a moment. So, starting off, damage dealt with this gun is damage that is dealt to an unarmored opponent. Okay? Not many people in this game will run around without armor on. And if they are, they're probably knife running. So, but you can see here on the right, it shows you what the damage is and the damage modifiers. So if you were to hit a headshot on a unarmored opponent, you're going to down them immediately. Specifically with this gun. Know that all of these numbers will change based on the gun that you're looking at. Control means that you have less noticeable recoil. And you'll notice I have built this gun so that it is just vertical recoil for the most part. The reason being is because I play mouse and keyboard, and vertical recoil is a lot easier for me to control than horizontal recoil. So I will build it to make sure that the only recoil I have is vertical, because it's easier for me to control. This is not going to be the case for everybody, and it certainly isn't going to be the case for, likely, many console players. So please just bear that in mind, that everybody plays differently. Everybody will be able to control different things. So a build that you think is terrible because it doesn't fit your playstyle may not actually be terrible for somebody else. Handling is how fast you can ADS, so aim down sight, and move. Now, there are other factors that are involved with moving while aimed down sight, but again, that will come from experimentation, figuring out what works for you in gun builds and what does not. This gun is not meant to be quick scoped. This is meant for holding angles and holding distances. Stability is your bullet spread here in this particular game. There's an ability that every operator has that allows you to hold your breath, which means that your weapon shakes less during continuous fire. If you are on PC, the default button for that is shift. Of course, if you have rekeybound it to something else, then it is whatever you rekeybound it to. Console players, I'm so sorry. I have absolutely no idea what your hold breath button is, but I would recommend when you get into the game to check out your keybinds and explore and see what some of these are. I personally don't use this particular ability, the hold breath one. I probably should do it more often. I just forget in the heat of the moment. So many of my guns that I do with continuous fire, I tend to make with fairly high stability so that I don't have to remember to use the hold the breath function. Accuracy is the hip fire stat and how accurate a shot is going to be when fired from the hip without aiming down sight. So, with that in mind, let me get mine. So, this is mine, and you can already tell the vast difference between the one from before and this one. Now, I haven't touched this particular build in a while. I've been primarily using assault rifles instead of my marksman rifle, but for the longest time, this was my build. So I will take it into the firing range to show you. So it is a pretty quick ADS, but it's still pretty slow. You have a bit of idle sway, like it sways a little bit if I'm not holding my breath. However, it's not as bad as some of the ones that I've seen. You can swap between zooms. The default for that one, I believe, is N. My recommendation is for PC players is to switch it to your scroll wheel. So now if I were to press shift to hold my breath, it stabilizes this pretty significantly. And you can see there's barely any permanent recoil. It goes right back to where it was before. Now, if I were to fire this without any sort of recoil control, you can see the pattern. Okay, now if I do my vertical recoil control, and this is why I ran this build, because I have good vertical recoil control with the mouse, my shots would always land pretty much in the same spot. Now, I did also build this to be a little bit accurate if I had to hip fire it for whatever reason. For the specific reason that this was the only gun I was bringing in, and I needed to be able to use it close quarters if I had to. So the other thing about this whole bit is that you can put all of these attachments on that you want. However, sometimes if you put these attachments on, but you don't calibrate the gun, it's not as good. So I am going to swap to my K4 because I think it'll be a bit better. Okay. So, with my K4, as opposed to that SR25, my K4 is completely calibrated. Some attachments will give you the ability to calibrate, and some will not. So bear that in mind, not all attachments can be calibrated. In this case, the barrel can be. And this is where I'm mentioning that my playstyle functions well with firing stability and muzzle velocity, because I would rather hold my ground and hold an angle than worry about quick scoping in and out. And it's just sliders at the bottom to adjust. So if I wanted to adjust this one, which decreases firing stability but increases ADS movement speed, I could do that. There's the foregrip, which, sorry, my skin makes this a little bit difficult to see, but the weight limit will reduce ADS speed and increase control, or vice versa, depending on which way you go. And the thickness is your ADS movement speed and stability while moving. The optic determines how much view you get from the zoom. I always do max zoom. I'm still experimenting with the pupillary distance. I haven't figured out which one of these I like just yet. Rear grip, again, this is all going to be based on your preference. And your preference when it comes to this, there is no wrong answer. You just have to find something that works for you. So let's say you get a build from somebody. Okay, for example, I'm going to be displaying Budsy's K416 here in just a moment. You want to use somebody else's build that you've seen online. It's a streamer you enjoy watching, and you're not sure how to import the build. So first, I'm gonna pop back out here to the gunsmith. You will go to the gun that you want. So if it's a rifle, you find it in the rifles, and we have designations here. I know Budsy's is a K416. So you come here to the K416, you hit preview. You then come to loadout. And then over here, it says save and import. You want to click on import. This is where you will take a code that you have copy pasted from wherever it is. And then you hit the little magnifying glass and it shows you what the build is. You can then hit apply. It does not buy anything until you have clicked purchase here and modify. Okay. So this is Budsy's build. You'll notice in loadout I do have one that is named Budsy. I don't know if he's changed this build at all. I'm gonna figure that out. That'll be interesting. But anyway, sorry. Little sidetracked. If this is a build that you'd like to use, you can hit firing range. Do understand that if you hit firing range with a loadout like this, where it's just saying previewing, it will not give you all of the calibration. The gun codes will include calibration. So I'm gonna come back here, go back to import. Now, say you have a K46, you have a gun, and you want to share the loadout and the build with your friends. Underneath import loadout is share loadout, and it will give you the code from your end to share with your friends. And you can copy it and you can post it in the squad chat for in Delta Force, or you can share it in Discords. Do understand that if you make any changes to that particular code, or there's adjustments made on updates, some codes may wind up kicking back as invalid. If that's the case, you just go in, get a new code, and go from there. So, for example, if I wanted to share this particular loadout, I would hit copy, and then I could share my K416 with others. I realize mine says mine expensive, and it's only a 6K difference. This used to be a much bigger difference than 6K between the two guns, just for the record. Like, this was almost 100K difference between the two, and it's still a budget build. Assuming you own the gun, this is still a budget build. So I hope that this has been helpful. Again, I'm not going to tell you exactly how to build a gun because it's not something that I can really tell you, because your playstyle may not be my playstyle, and your playstyle may not be your favorite streamer's playstyle, and you need to find what works for you. And personally, I don't like some of the guns. Like, I have problems with the Ash 12. I don't like the Ash 12. I think it's a terrible gun. I know that it is not, and I know that there are people out there who kick ass using the Ash 12. It's just not for me. And that's okay. Find what works for you. And when you find what works for you, you're going to have fun fighting the lobbies. I'm not going to guarantee you're going to wipe the lobbies, but you'll have fun fighting them. So, as always, guys, I love you lots. Be kind to one another. And for the love of God, stop sending weird shit to the VAs. My next video is going to be on hitting up to go into raid. After that, we will be discussing what to loot versus what not to loot. So we have a couple more videos incoming. I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one.